Jonathan Stewart gets in, fights for more yardage. Stewart to the mouth of the goal line. Touchdown!
Wow, that's just pure Stewart right there.
That's a big-time run by Jonathan Stewart.
Welcome to Bleav in Carolina Panthers here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Do you believe? Rate and subscribe to the show on all major podcast platforms and subscribe to our social media channels on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Video available weekly at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Do you believe?
And welcome into a brand new edition of the Bleav in Panthers podcast here on Bleav Podcast Network. So I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, joined today by the Panthers' all-time leading rusher, Jonathan Stewart, in the house. Schuyler Callihan is actually at the Panthers facility for practice, so he can't be with us this morning, but he'll be with us next week. Loaded show for you guys today. It's the week of the draft. Athlon Sports draft expert Luke Easterling is going to join us here in about 6 or 7 minutes, actually, about 10:45. He'll come in. We'll talk Panther prospects in the second round with the 33rd, 39th pick. At 11:15 a.m., Ross Tucker from CBS Sports in Westwood One, former NFL player, former lineman. He'll join us to talk more about more macro scope of the NFL as a whole, teams that can benefit the most on night one and first round sleepers. Before we get into that, we'll talk a little bit about we haven't been on in a couple of weeks. Actually took a little bit of a break. Last show we did, Derrick Brown signed right after, so you haven't heard our reactions to that and the offseason the Panthers have had. So me and Stu will get you caught up on that as well. And of course, everything's live. If you want to participate, you can do so in the comment section on YouTube or on Facebook or Twitter. Before we get into all that, though, of course, a word from our sponsors over at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, for Major League Baseball, golf, NBA, and NHL playoff stats. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use a mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And I'm so glad I did not bet on my Lakers last night. I stayed up and watched that game. Jamal Murray broke my heart at the very end. It was a really good doubleheader. Knicks and Philly right before it was really good too. So NBA playoffs are going on right now. So check them out over on BetOnline and use that money. Stu, what's happening, man? We ain't seen each other in a couple of weeks. Everybody's had stuff going on. What's going on, man?
Oh man, just out here keeping it copacetic. The draft is upon us. It's happened very quick. Man, it's just been a busy offseason for the Carolina Panthers. A lot of moving pieces, and when I say pieces, a lot of moving faces.
Yeah.
But I think we're all heading in the right direction. There's a lot to be excited about.
Dan Morgan and Dave Canales had their pre-draft press conference at the end of last week. I was going to clip some stuff out of there, but pretty much the same stuff. Dan's looking for dogs. Dave is super positive. It's almost infectious. Like, have you met him multiple times at this point, Dave Canales, Stu?
Yeah, man, he's one of the better people that I've met in my life. Just his energy, got great, energy, and you can tell you can tell that he's in this for the right reasons. He's in this, to make an impact on an organization from the inside out. And when I say inside out, I mean, this is a coach, about the individual first, and then he cares about the player second, right? And then he cares about, now let's get into this coaching thing, right? Now I know you well enough and I have earned your respect in a way to where now we can coach easier and I can understand what I'm going to coach you on. I'm going to bring out the best in you by, illuminating basically what you're good at. And then we're going to, over time, work on the things that you're not good at. So like when you talk about a person that has that type of read in coaching, that's a person that has depth. That's a person that has experience on just levels of life. And when you meet, a guy like that is just infectious. It makes you want to go off and, be a better person.
Yeah, like I want to go play football. Every time I hear him play, it's like, man, I want to go play football.
and a guy like that can only be that way if he's consistent. And he seems to have that consistent charisma about him that really makes you excited about coming to work every day. Because especially, with football and sports, there's going to be a lot of highs and lows. And if you know that you're going to work and the person that's leading you and guiding you at your job, and you know that they have this type of, view on life, it's going to come off and it's going to create a culture in that locker room that is, hey, shake it off. Let's get better. This is how we're going to get better. Hey, we just won. Stay even keel. Let's celebrate it. It's a good thing, but let's move on. But just a good dude. I've met him a couple times, and we're excited for the things that he's going to bring to the city of Charlotte.
And that shout out to everybody that's joining into us right now, whether it's on our Instagram feed, whether it's on our YouTube channel, whether it's on our Facebook.
Oh yeah, I forgot to do that.
Stu's sharing it out right now, so we'll see a flood coming here in a little bit. On our Twitter account, we found out a couple weeks ago when we were on.
What's our Twitter account? What's our Twitter name?
Bleav in Panthers. So at Bleav in Panthers, if you go there, you'll see it listed there, and then Stu's about to tweet it. I'm about to retweet it as well. So we realized if you comment in Twitter, it actually shows up here, so we can actually respond to you in real time on Twitter, just like Facebook or YouTube. So if you're watching there, definitely chime in. It's going to be kind of open today, open mailbag with Luke Easterling coming in from Athlon Sports and Ross Tucker a little bit later from CBS Sports. You'll get a chance to ask draft analyst questions yourself. Of course, I'm going to screen them, make sure that you're not asking anything crazy, but we'll get some of that stuff in there as well. And of course, see, I got Stu in the comment section. See how it works right there. So if you comment on Twitter, you can do it, and we'll see it. So we're not lying here. Real quick before they start coming in, previously on Bleav in Panthers, we talked about how the biggest move left to make for the Panthers was signing defensive tackle Derrick Brown to a long-term deal. About 12 hours later, they made it happen. 4 years, I think like $96 million he'll be receiving. I think he comes out to like the fourth or fifth highest paid DT in the game or something, but it's going to set him up for another deal when he's 28 or something like that in a couple of years. Yeah. What were your thoughts when you heard that, Stu? Because I know all three of us, me, you, and Schuyler, have been harping on the fact that if you're going to let Burns go, Brown's your guy. You probably need to make sure you keep and keep secure. And Dan Morgan did exactly that.
Derrick Brown, as we seen last year, a breakout season for sure. Breaking the record for tackles, defensive tackle, is not an easy feat. And especially given the circumstances that we were in, right? And that we didn't have a great year as a team. Carolina Panthers, in this offseason with the transitioning of coaching, new GM, Dan Morgan. I think right now what we're seeing is we're actually becoming someone, if that makes any sense.
No, I've been like with that actually. I'm like actually doing this.
Yeah. Well, because we figured what Dan is doing, and Dave, we're basically coming together and saying, hey, who do we want to be? I like that. Let's put that into the pot, right? Let's put that in the pot. I don't like that. Let's take that out of the pot, right? And you got to get to the basics of who you want to be and who you want to become. And Derrick Brown right now, they're basically saying, if you are a player that has any of the recipe that Derrick Brown has, we want you. Derrick Brown is a hard work. Derrick Brown's a hard worker. He's studious. He's a student of the game. He's always trying to get better. And he just seems to always elevate every year.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So never, as a player, you're taught to come in, do your job. But the great ones come in fresh every single year as if this is their first year, right?
Yep.
I have not arrived. The moment that you feel like you've arrived, that's when you have a tumbling effect, right? And Derrick Brown last year, his energy, his toughness. I mean, that's what we want, right? We want smart football players that are tough, and not just physically, but mentally, because it's a long season. They added another game, right? So, like, it's you got to figure out how to get your mentals connected to, your physical. So, this is it's a long season, and you got to be committed, not just on the field, but off, right? When you're off, you got to make sure that you're taking care of your body. You got to make sure that you're eating right. You got to make sure home is good.
Yeah.
And so you got to have guys that are mentally tough. And Derrick Brown has proven that he's been that, and he's been, exactly what we are looking for as a player when it comes to the Carolina Panthers and what it means to keep pounding, because he did that last year.
He did. And I think he's a great base to start with, especially on defense. I don't think he's done growing. Like, I don't think he's done becoming the player he's ultimately going to become, like whatever his ultimate form is going to be. I don't know what it is, but I don't think we've seen it yet, though. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Luke. He's waiting backstage from Athlon Sports. Luke Easterling, joining us here on Bleav in Panthers. How you doing, man? How's everything going? It's not that busy this week, right?
Nah, not much. I'm gonna see if I can find something to do on Thursday night. Might be a little bored, but
yeah.
Doing great, fellas. Doing great.
Happy to have you on with us. We do this live across YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, and we do a lot of fan interaction. So we may get some fan questions in during the segment that we have you on, but definitely wanted to take advantage of having on a draft guru. The Panthers in a unique situation, no first round pick, but we've kind of talked ourselves into the mindset of we have 2 of the top 40 picks. So it makes it feel a little better. We got pick number 33.
That sounds better. I like that.
Yeah, it makes it put a little shine on it. It's got pick 33 and pick 39. Who do you think is going to still, or I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask the question here. At the end of the first round, when we're done Thursday night and we sleep on it, we wake up Friday morning, give us a couple of names of guys you think might have slipped through the cracks that might still be there at the top of the second round for the Panthers to decide what to do with the 33rd pick.
I mean, the easy call is receiver, right? I mean, that's where the class seems to stack up. And I think in terms of to pull out and look at the draft in a holistic view, the most intriguing run to me is where the second run of receivers is going to happen, right? Because those top 3 elite guys are going to go in the top 10, but who's going to take the 4th guy? Because I feel like there's going to be so many guys, mixed together in that second tier that how many teams in the teens or 20s are going to be like, yeah, we really like Brian Thomas Jr. We really like, A.D. Mitchell, but how much better are those guys than the guy we'll get, in the 50s or the 60s in the second round? And is it worth us giving our first round pick in this huge, deep class of receivers to take the 4th or 5th receiver when the 7th or 8th or 9th guy is not that far behind? Because I think that impacts what Carolina does at 33 in a big way. Because if that run doesn't start until late, I've done so many mock drafts at this point that I've seen just about every scenario where maybe Brian Thomas Jr. goes at 15. And so by the time you get to Buffalo at 28 or even KC at 32, and these teams that also need a receiver, they're having to go, okay, I got to go receiver because 3 or 4 guys are off the board already. If Thomas Jr. or whoever that 4th guy is doesn't come off the board until the mid to late 20s, again with Buffalo and KC, now you're talking about a situation where Carolina's at 33 and only 4 receivers or 5 receivers are off the board. So they've got Ladd McConkey and Troy Franklin and Xavier Worthy and so many of these guys. Keon Coleman. I know Panthers fans will be like, oh my God, Kelvin Benjamin again. It's not Kelvin Benjamin, I promise. There's so many things that can impact what happens at 33, but it's just hard for me to think that receiver's not going to be the way they go. A couple of guys that could keep them from going receiver, because I think the depth plays into 39 as well. If you feel like it's so deep and there's so many guys on the board, maybe you do wait till 39 and you take, if Nate Wiggins is there, corner from Clemson, maybe. If for some reason, I don't see Chop Robinson getting there, but if there's an edge rusher they really like, maybe Zach Frazier, the center from West Virginia, if they want to go interior O-line, there's certain guys that if they're there and they feel confident enough in the depth of the receiver class to be like, whoever ends up at 39 we'll be fine with. We got to take this guy here. Those are a few names where I feel like they might risk it because they're so confident in the depth of the receiver class.
Stu, you got a question?
No, man, I think that's a great evaluation there. I mean, there obviously we will never know because I think, but like I feel like the first. I mean, they're talking. The first 4 picks are going to be quarterbacks, right? So, like, if that's true,
you think that's going to happen?
I can't really. I don't see it.
Who would the 4 be? Like, so what? You're talking?
They got your Michigan boy. They got your Michigan boy going over Jalen Daniels.
What's happening with McCarthy? Like, why is McCarthy shooting up the charts so fast like this? Like, I'm hearing rumors that
it's got to be
traded.
It's got to be smoking for TV or something. I don't know, but I think at the end of the day, we have like you were spot on. The receiver class is so deep, and I even think it's deep into in the realm of top 15, right?
Yeah,
because just like what you were saying, you have the 3 guys. You have Marvin Harrison, you got Malik Neighbors, and you got Rome Odunze. Those 3, I mean, really, the Rome Odunze, I have basically Brian Thomas Jr. Him and Odunze, to me, we might see something.
I like
in the draft.
Like a lot. Yeah,
I like Odunze, but I also like Brian Thomas. I think he's being overshadowed for obvious reasons, but I think you take those 2 guys, you can flip-flop them. But when it comes to the rest of the receivers in this draft, they're all kind of – there's not a bunch of separation in the sense of how polished they are, in the sense of, plug-and-play guys, right? Now, you might have your Xavier Worthies that is a speedster that, hey, you got to draft this guy because we have no speed on the roster,
right?
Or something.
All of those guys have something, but they're also missing something. Like,
right.
So
like 1 tool, 2 tools.
Yeah, so there's something for everybody, but there's also a reason that they're not a complete guy in that realm. I agree.
For those that are questioning, that is not Schuyler Callihan. That is Luke Easterling from Athlon Sports. I see people dropping in and they're like regulars and they're probably looking at the screen.
Oh God,
what did Schuyler do differently from a couple weeks ago?
Schuyler got some nice hair.
Yeah.
Sorry guys.
Let me ask this question though, because this is another scenario that's popped up at 33 for the Panthers. It's almost like they control day 2 onward because of them being at the top of the 2nd round. What are the odds of the Panthers trading that pick and moving back? Like, what do you think? What player would have to drop for the Panthers to not only not want the player that dropped, but for them to take offers from teams to trade down in the 2nd round? I rather would not draft past number 40 with that pick. If it's whatever, I'd rather be somebody from 33 to 39 that, we're still staying ahead of our 39th pick, but beggars can't be choosers. But is there a player that you're looking at out there that might be fringe 1st round or up in the 1st round in all these mocks that may drop like every year somebody does, that would cause a bunch of teams to kind of move up to try to grab them?
Yeah, I mean that power has a lot. That pick has a lot of power, right? We see it every year when they move to the 3-day format. If you're sitting at the top of the board after Thursday, that phone's going to be ringing off the hook. Really, no matter what. I mean, there's going to be somebody there where somebody wants to move up, and we've seen it happen multiple times in recent years where that pick does get moved. And so the conversation for me starts at quarterback. If the next tier of quarterbacks, if it's Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., whoever, if either of those guys are on the board, and if Denver didn't get their guy in the 1st round, if Denver's going to be hard because they don't have a 2nd, right? So they don't have anything to move up from until the 3rd round.
And they just traded for Zach Wilson yesterday.
Well, that fixes everything.
Yeah.
That fixes everything. So
does it? Wait, does it?
It doesn't fix a damn thing, guys. But no, if there's somebody,
hey, we're gonna get rid of. Hey, Russell, get out of here. Hey, you, Wilson, come here.
Get in here.
What? Wait a minute, what just happened?
Glorious. We got something.
It's like what?
We got Russell Wilson at home. We got it's not Zach Wilson is not no. But the couple of guys that I think could be there, I look at maybe an offensive tackle. If one of those tackles, it's a deep tackle class too. So if a top tackle falls down, because I look at a team like Washington, who's also at 36 and 40, and if they want to get ahead of New England at 34, who they're going to go, quarterback or receiver, at the worst at 3, they need a left tackle too. So if Washington wants to jump ahead of New England at 34, that would make a ton of sense to me. And Washington has a ton of picks. So they would be able to give Carolina whatever capital they would need to drop back to either 40 or 36 or whatever it is. And so that's the team and the fit and the type of play. I don't know who it would be. Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, Jordan Morgan from Arizona, maybe in that conversation. Again, I don't know that a guy like Chop Robinson falls, and if he does, I think Carolina stays and picks him. I don't think they would move out of that situation. But it'd have to be a quarterback. I feel like it's premium positions, right? You got to be a pass rusher, a pass protector, or a guy who throws the football. And I think those would be the situations in which they could be tempted to move down from that pick. But they're going to get a ton of calls. The team sitting there always does.
I feel like in their press conference last week, Dan Morgan and Dave Canales, when they were talking to the Charlotte media, Dan didn't want to get boxed in because someone asked him, would you trade up if somebody was there? And he didn't want to say, no, we wouldn't. But you can kind of tell that he was going to be like, nah, we ain't trading up. Like, there's no reason for us to trade up at this point. But trading down seems like an option depending on what's sitting there and what they can still get. I could see a situation like you just said, Luke, where say some of that second tier of wide receivers, there's like 3 of them sitting there or 2 of them sitting there when we get up for Friday night or whatnot, and somebody's calling for one. I could see us moving down 3 spots to 36 or whatever and still getting Ladd McConkey or somebody from Georgia. And then Schuyler actually reports for West Virginia for Sports Illustrated. So he's been high on Zach Frazier for months. He put him on our radar really before the season was over.
Dude's nasty. Nasty, man.
And he was telling, what was the story, Stu? He broke his leg or something?
He did. He broke his leg.
He was dragging himself down the field. Like that dog. That's a Dan Morgan dog.
They call them glass eaters. That's
glass
what they
eaters.
call them.
I like that. But yeah, I was trying to think of the weakness on the roster. First of all, Carolina, I think, has done a really good job in free agency in terms of plugging holes. And we were talking about the last show, kind of playing Moneyball, NFL style, in terms of what they've done. Instead of paying Brian Burns $30 million, they turned it into Ashawn Robinson and Jadeveon Clowney. So you make 2 starters out of it, that kind of thing. You're reproducing the production in an aggregate way, as opposed to just giving guys money, except for Derrick Brown, who deserved it. As you are familiar, I would imagine, a little bit with the Panthers roster and the new regime coming in and everything else. What would you say is the number one need for the Panthers going into this draft? A lot of people say wide receiver, but is there someplace else that you're looking at where you're like, the Panthers really need this right here and they don't have it? Nobody's talking about it.
I mean, I do think it's not just receiver, but it's just help for Bryce Young. Like, whatever your investment is in that guy. The reason you don't have the number 1 pick this year is because you traded it because of the confidence that whoever it was that made that move. Like, that's your investment right now. And so whether it's receiver, whether it's a center, whether it's a tight end, there's a lot of different ways you can help him out that he needs it. And I feel like that has to be the priority. But to your point, there are needs lurking on defense that I think have to be addressed at some point. I think depth and long-term. So like you said, they brought in some veteran guys to kind of stopgap, but where's the long-term solutions at corner, on the edge, at linebacker, past Shaq Thompson's end of his career maybe, and then at safety, there's at every level of the defense there are guys that can probably suffice for now. But again, you're building something. This regime is clearly building something for the future. And so if you're not making a pick to help Bryce Young in the early rounds, there are definitely a lot of places, which again, we alluded to earlier, guys that can fall. We talked about edge. We talked about corner. Those are places where I think they could invest. But the biggest need, man, I think it's really simple. It's just you've got to get things that'll help make Bryce Young able to be the player, the best version of himself. And whether that's a guy catching passes or protecting him, I don't think they care. I think it's just about helping him as much as possible. That's
actually a really good segue, because this is a question I had for both of you guys. Stu, I know you love the running backs. Would you pick a running back with one of these 2 second-round picks? And if so, is there a guy you've been watching this season that you think might be sitting there that would be justifiable to pick at, say, 39 or whatever?
My answer to that is no. and I love I'm a running back. I love my back.
If you're saying no, that should all anybody needs to know about.
That's right. That's week.
But I will say though, the running back class is different this year. I think there's a lot of guys that can be playmakers in their own right if given the right situation. Look at a guy like Bucky Irving, and that's not just because I went to the University of Oregon, but he's a guy that I can see, given the right system, if they draft a guy like that, he comes in and he basically, who's the running back that from the Lions last year?
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh yeah, you give Bryce somebody like that.
So finding someone that can, slice and dice, right? Slice and dice and run the ball efficiently. We ain't running you to the ground, but you can come in there and spell somebody and basically create havoc for defense, wondering what the offense is about to do with a new back in the backfield. And you can also put him in the slot. You can do whatever it is that you want to do, put him in space. So there's a lot of guys like that in this draft, I think, that will fall in the later rounds. I think the days of, guys getting drafted early, being the bruiser backs and all that, those days may come back, at some point.
Yeah.
But until we find that guy or those guys, in the next coming, generation, I don't think we'll see guys drafted that high anymore.
Well, I asked that question because of what the Panthers did in the free agency period. Their first two big signings were, the two guards that they signed for over $150 million or whatever to shore up the interior of the line. And it sounds like from listening to Dave Canales that they're going to have a heavy emphasis on the run game, that they're going to be running the ball a lot. So I look at it like, is Chuba Hubbard enough? Like, I feel like they're going to need another guy to go with him. And it'd be really nice with one of those second round picks to find a running back that you can kind of maybe potentially turn into a bellwether back. Is there a guy out there, Luke, that you think might be potentially that kind of guy that they could pick up at the top of the second?
I think there'll be. I don't think any running backs will be off the board at that point. First of all, so if you want one, you can have one. We could go two whole rounds without a running back, and I'd be fine with it. Like I would. I think the first Dallas at 54, I think it is, or 58, or somewhere in that range. I think they might take the first one. I think Jonathan Brooks from Texas might be the first one off the board, and I think he would fit there. They're the team that I think would be at a position where that we need that so much and everything else is kind of okay to where we can take a running back. That's the first kind of pick where I feel that way every time I do a mock draft. I end up that far, that deep without thinking running back. And part of it is, I know it's not last year's class where we had, two guys in the top 12, but I actually kind of like the running back class as a whole, because I think the difference between the top guy, who I think is Trey Benson from Florida State, if you want the complete guy, I think that's who it is. 4.39 speed at 220 plus. He can run between the tackles. He can run away from the defense. I think he can do everything on all three downs.
I like that.
If he's there,
yeah.
He'll be there. He'll be that. I don't think he's going to be a top 40 pick. I don't. But again, part of that is because if you peel back and look at the whole class, how much better is he than the 8th or 9th guy off the board? You talked about Bucky Irving. I'd put Ray Davis from Kentucky. I'd put Marshawn Lloyd from USC. I love Audric Estime from Notre Dame. You can throw that 40 time out. Go look at the film. That dude is nasty between the tackles.
I like Marshawn a lot. He brings a lot to the table.
That's the conversation you have to have with yourself is, I love Trey Benson. He's the best running back in this draft, but is he that much better than everybody else in the running back class for me to spend a top 40 pick when I know in the 3rd or 4th round I could get a guy like Marshawn Lloyd and have, is that enough of a big difference? I don't think it is. But that's kind of how I feel about the running back class. I really love it as a whole. And that's why I would not go there early. If I did, again, Trey Benson, I really like him. Jonathan Brooks as well. I'm really high on Jalen Wright from Tennessee. I think he's an explosive guy, 3-down guy. He's actually the number 3 running back in this draft to me. But I don't know. I don't see anybody dipping into that group because I feel like they'll think they can get production in the 3rd or 4th round, and I agree with them. I think they will.
Joining us from Athlon Sports, Luke Easterling on with us here on Bleav in Panthers, a loaded show today. Ross Tucker, former NFL lineman and CBS Sports Westwood One guy, will be in just a bit. Before we get you out of here, Luke, give us a surprise. You got a surprise top 10? Somebody that may fall or somebody that might rise? It seems like J.J. McCarthy might be maybe the surprise here.
I feel like at this point it'd be a surprise if McCarthy doesn't go in the top 5. Like that seems to be all the but. Like he's number 30 on my board, guys. So like,
what happened? What happened? Why?
We always say this, right? We say a guy rises up the board. Nobody's going anywhere. It's just the media. Like we find out that the league, like, oh, they actually really like JJ McCarthy. Okay, that's interesting. Like it's us finding out how the league feels, whether we agree or not. I don't, in terms of McCarthy. but that's why it is happening. That's what I think. If I had to have a big surprise, I think there's a few guys that could sneak into the first round that could surprise some people. I think Marshawn Nealon, the edge rusher from Western Michigan, is a hot name right now. I think he could sneak into the first round. Again, Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, the offensive tackle, the right tackle, I think he'll be a first round pick. I think that the big surprise to me would be Brock Bowers. Does he fall? Do teams convince themselves, yeah, he's a great tight end, but I don't think I'll make him worth a top 10, top 15 pick. If he gets to Cincinnati at 18, can you imagine him in that offense? If he gets to Indy at 15, Anthony Richardson, Michael Pittman Jr., Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs, and then you add Brock Bowers to that offense, how much fun that would be. That's kind of what I'm looking for on Thursday. Those are kind of some of the surprises there.
I will say the one thing that concerns me with Carolina's picks at the top of the second round are the people that are picking at the end of the first round, and it's Buffalo and Kansas City, and they both could use wide receivers. Buffalo just traded off Stephon Diggs. I don't know what the right situation is going to be with Kansas City with his off-field stuff going on, but I'd imagine he's not going to be available for some of the season. And he was a young guy too. Like, wasn't his first year this past year? So I mean, they're kind of sort of looking at their wide receiver core and kind of figuring out what can they keep and how much longer can Travis Kelce put all this on his back and just kind of keep us going.
I can see your boy Brian Thomas going there
to Kansas City.
Yeah.
I could see them going for somebody like that on the outside, on the edge.
I wouldn't be surprised if they move up. If they really like a guy like Thomas or even A.D. Mitchell, if they want to get ahead of, again, depending on what happens with Arizona, if they don't take Harrison, they got to get ahead of them. You got to get ahead of Buffalo at 28. I could see them moving up if a guy, again, if that run doesn't start till late and he gets close enough and they get a chance at either of those guys, I think that could happen.
I think Arizona and Marvin Harrison is a perfect pair because
gotta be.
They gotta make this thing go with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, they already gave him the bag.
They gave him the bag. You got to do it.
What are you going to do now?
And he's the most polished out of all the receivers, so he can plug and play and then go ahead and make a run for it.
Best player in the draft.
Marvin Harrison's legit. I thought for a while Chicago might have been better off keeping Justin Fields and drafting Marvin Harrison at one, but
I could see that.
They did not.
Hey, before I go, I have to say, man, I'm here in Tampa. I grew up here and like a diehard Bucs fan. So like, you killed me for so many years, Jay Stewart. Like I had so many sad, terrible memories of just sitting there and watching you and D'Angelo just all up and down the field, just shredding. I'm just raging it. So for my childhood self. Thank you very much for making me so miserable so many times.
You've got that running reel of him stiff arming Rondé Barber.
Nightmares for days, man. You guys were nasty, but hey, as a football fan looking back, man, you guys were a hell of a fun bunch to watch, and what a ground game, man. You guys were fantastic.
Man, appreciate it, man. I appreciate you giving us the insight and continue to do so. We'll be following you, and we'll have to do this another time.
Yeah, Luke, tell us where they can follow you on Twitter /X, whatever the kids are calling it these days.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's at Luke Easterling. Come on over there. We go over to athlonsports.com. I literally just before I hopped on, I dropped the last 4-round mock draft that I'm going to do for this process. So go over and see what Carolina's got. I will tell you guys, I think you're going to love Dave Canales. I know you might already. We only had him for a year down here in Tampa, but I think he's legit, and I think that's why Dan Morgan was so adamant about getting him from their time in Seattle together. I was pretty pissed off to lose him after just a year. I think that's how much of an impact he made already for this offense. So enjoy him. I think you guys might have. I'm super pissed about you guys. And then Raheem Morris goes to Atlanta, and I really like him. And I'm like, will y'all stop hiring all the guys I really like for all the division rivals? I kind of hate this. All I have left is New Orleans to hate on. It's stupid. I hate it.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. And it is kind of
weird.
Yeah,
I'll just funnel it all to the Saints. That's fine.
It's kind of weird that those guys left in division, though. Like they didn't go like away. Like they're still here. You're going to see them.
Yeah, we're going to see them a lot. Yep, it's going to be fun, man.
Man, Luke, this has been fantastic. Again, follow his work from Athlon Sports. And I know you can't wait for Thursday because then that means no more mock drafts until what?
Dude,
like
I'm gonna sleep through June. Like I'm just gonna. You won't be able to find me at all.
It's almost over, brother. It's almost over. So
almost there.
There's Luke Easterly from Athlon Sports. Appreciate you coming through, man.
My pleasure, guys.
So we'll have Ross Tucker on here in just a bit from CBS Sports and Westwood One. Thoughts on what Luke was saying, Stu?
That was cool, man. He had some really good insight.
Yeah, he did.
My man is eating and sleeping and doing all the other things draft right now. And so we appreciate guys like him that give their time and their efforts to keep us updated, refreshed on what we should be looking forward to. And so I really appreciate that.
I was talking to I can't remember who it was from Bleav a couple days ago, because they were asking, what are we going to do the next couple of months? I'm like, well, we've got the Ultimate 53. We kind of planned to do that through May, and then June we're usually off anyway to recharge. But we were talking about I forgot where my train of thought was going here. What were we talking about?
What you was talking about, dog?
I forgot what I was
Bring
talking
it
about.
back. Bring it back.
I was talking to Bleav about this. Oh, now I remember. They were asking, well, you guys have been off a couple weeks. I'm like, yeah, we took a couple weeks off because this is mock draft time. Like, anybody that knows us, we don't do mock drafts at Bleav in Panthers. We just don't do them.
The phrase "mock" is a mockery.
Yeah, we don't do it. And I told him, like, straight up, look, go back to the past 4 years. We've never really done a mock. I think me and Tyrone Poole did one year one. We did a mock draft at the end of the season. But after that, everybody's doing mock drafts. So it was like, we didn't want to get lost in the sauce. I'd rather come in draft week and talk about the prospects we might be able to get at the beginning of the draft. Because really, after these first two picks,
it's a mockery.
You know what they're going to get? Yeah. What they're going to do. Like, it's impossible to figure out. Having said that, Schuyler has a mock draft for Sports Illustrated that he's been working on off and on, a 7-round draft with all the Panther picks. And actually, me and him are going to go through his draft, I think, a little bit later on this week. Stu, of course, definitely, if you're free, you ain't got nothing going on, a little bit later on, come through and make fun of Schuyler's picks. But I think it's going to be, I think he said Wednesday night maybe. So keep an eye out for that. We might go through and do that again.
I might be able to make that work.
All right, cool. I'll get with Schuyler for that. I think it was talking like 7:30 or something like that, or 8 o'clock Wednesday night. So we'll do that. And then Bleav is pushing for more Panther content from us. So we're going to start doing something called Bleav in Panthers Extra. I already do a terrestrial radio show here in North Carolina on Fridays called Franchise Players. And typically I have a Panther segment each week where I'm interviewing a Panther personality, radio guy, former player, whatever it may be, or a podcast host for Panthers content creators. Anybody from Jim Zoki to I think Anish Shroff we're going to try to have on soon. And I'm trying to get him on Bleav in Panthers here in May. But I'm going to start using those as extras for Bleav in Panthers later on in the week. You'll be able to hear those on Thursdays. Those interviews are about 20 minutes long. You'll be able to get those. This week it's Chris Lee, WRIL, lead sports anchor and co-host of Panthers Playbook with Dennis Cox on 99.9 The Fan in Raleigh. He'll be on with me. Great friend, known him for years. And we'll talk a little about this draft or whatnot. We're just waiting on Ross Tucker to come in backstage. While we're waiting on that, the ultimate 53-man roster, Panther roster, we finished the offense out. The last two were Christian McCaffrey and D'Angelo Williams to the running back field. You can get the full offense at sportscarolinamonthly.com. The defensive voting will start today. And I want to ask Stu, what positions should I start with? Because the defense is, I'm trying to figure out how to even begin this. I was thinking defensive tackle maybe, and I'm like, how many should we keep? Like, 3 maybe.
Yeah, maybe 3 because you got to have a depth guy.
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna do them in 3 groups too, like the way I was doing them to kind of keep it fair. So, but I'm just thinking down from Derrick Brown today to Chris Jenkins,
Kawan Short.
Kawan Short, Brinson Buckner's going to be in there.
Then you get to the defense. You get to the defensive ends. Granddaddy of them all, Julius Pepper, Mike Rucker.
Like, if Pep's a first ballot Hall of Famer, does he even need to go through this nonsense? Like, we push Ryan Khalil through. So we probably should go ahead and put Pep through. So he probably won't be in there, but that still leaves Mike Rucker, Brian Burns,
Charles Johnson.
I guess Lamar Lathan and Kevin Green were outside linebackers, but yeah, it's going to be an issue. We didn't decide what defense we were playing. I think one of our fans suggested it should be off of the offensive or defensive coordinator that we picked. So I think we chose a 4-3. So four, your three linebackers, and then your secondary. But you can vote on that at Bleav in Panthers on Twitter. The first group will be up today for defense, and that's what we'll be doing in May after the draft is over with. Of course, we'll give you news and notes from the Panthers. Schuyler will be at the training camps or whatnot for the rookies in particular, but we'll also finish that out. So by the time we get to the end of May, when we get to the end of our season, we'll have a full ultimate 53-man roster, and we'll know a little bit more about who Bryce is going to be throwing to, handing off to, and yada, yada, yada. Did I give Ross the link to get in here? Because he's still not. I know he's got a bunch of other ones he's been running through, so he might have got held up. But we'll wait on him to poke his head through here while we're waiting on Ross. Who do you for Chicago at number 1? I forgot they have the 9th pick too. Who we clearly are going to go for quarterback. I mean, are they locked in? You think on your boy,
Caleb Williams?
Yeah, like, are you locked in on Caleb Williams being the number 1 quarterback in this draft?
I am. I think at the end of the day, it's got to be all about how does he fit in that locker room. How does he fit in that coaching staff? If the coaching staff likes him, I think you just eat it. You know, you gotta make a decision either way. So
yeah.
you don't want it to be shaky out the gate. So if you've been pumping him up, you know, bringing him in for, you know, visits and whatnot, I wouldn't want my guy to be shook as far as am I going to be a Chicago Bear? I don't know. I think it's good to be in that situation and just knowing what you're going to do and just not draw any question mark to it. Because it's not like you're trying to hide anything with your number 1 pick, you know?
Yeah.
So I think he's definitely going to be a Chicago Bear. I think my question with the quarterbacks, though, is Drake May and McCarthy and Jalen Daniels. Like, I like Jalen Daniels out of all 3 of those guys, and seems like he's everyone's pushing Drake May and McCarthy, and I know he's a little bit undersized, but who cares? This guy.
I don't even know if that matters anymore at quarterback.
Yeah, like I feel like the offensive coordinators. You got to give offensive coordinators more credit nowadays, man, because, you know, we can talk about this, you know, later with the receivers, because we talk about guys that are undersized, but the offensive coordinators are coming up with plays to where they've advanced this thing to another level, to where defensive guys can't just unload on a smaller guy. They're putting these players in positions to be successful and to limit their exposure to hits. You know, you look at the Miami Dolphins, you know, with speed. When you have speed, you can do a lot of things, man. You can put guys in a limbo as far as decision making goes, right?
Yep.
You know, get those guys running across the ball pre-snap and having the linebackers have to be like, oh crap, what am I doing? We call them oh crap motions. Right, you know, like the fly motions and, you know, the jet sweeps. Like, oh crap, that guy's like, who's got him? You know. And so Sean McVay been basically, you know, changing the game from that standpoint of, you know, how do we get into, you know, our offensive schematics here and putting guys in positions to be successful.
I'm still. JJ McCarthy, I mean, he played great in the national championship game and the semifinal game, and he kind of feels like a traditional throwback type quarterback. And a lot of that feels like smoke from Jim Harbaugh, because I think Jim Harbaugh has been talking a lot about McCarthy kind of just raising his draft stock. I heard a crazy rumor that the Chargers are going to trade Justin Herbert to Minnesota for their first round pick and something else so the Chargers could draft McCarthy. And I was like, but Justin Herbert's better.
And maybe this is a situation where, because if you remember when
Oregon quarterback. Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix. Bo Nix is kind of that one of like to me. Bo Nix is McCarthy. I don't know what like people are saying like, oh, he's not elite in this, he's not elite in that. Like McCarthy's not elite in anything either.
No.
Not yet. You know what I'm saying? Like you to be an elite, you have to do certain things over and over and over and over for a period of time for us to be like, man, I expect this out of this guy.
Yeah.
Greatness out of this guy. We're gonna get that on this table, on this platform. But yeah, Bo Nix, like if you get, I just don't know. I just feel like the mock draft is becoming such a mockery. Everybody's probably using AI technology to come up with this stuff.
Hey, yo, they probably are. They probably are.
So everyone's just kind of like out there just guessing. And like AI is taking guessing to a whole nother level because there's really no true insight unless you're talking to these teams.
That's what we should have did. We should have did a Bleav in Panthers first round mock draft and just dumped it in Chat GPT and just what it pitched out.
It might dump out some names that don't even have.
Right. That's the one thing I've learned though. It is not 100% accurate. Like if you do try to use it, it'll punch out names from like the 80s or whatever that played and stuff, and it'll just write this nonsense. You have to go in and kind of correct it anyway. But that's wild. Ross flew by his 115, so I'm not sure if he's coming in or not. So we'll give him a couple more minutes, and if not, we'll stop it there. But I'm really interested in this quarterback class because the question for us, since we don't have that first round pick because we traded it for Bryce, and maybe we ended on this, would you take a quarterback in this class over Bryce Young?
No.
I don't think so either. And that makes me feel better about the Bryce pick because, I mean, Bryce.
I honestly think as a whole, this draft, there's not a lot of polished players.
Yeah. There's some experiments going on.
I think the offensive line is probably the most capable of being polished. You know what I'm saying? Because, you got guys that have actually played multiple seasons consistently. So I look at, a lot of these receiver positions, like Tez Walker, for instance. Like I think he's a potential really good pick for anyone. The UNC receiver. But he's had a lot of ups and downs throughout his college days, because he's missed time and because he was part of the COVID situation. He played 8 games this year because of all the hoax and all that kind of crap that went down with the NCAA, making him making an example out of him. Good thing he had his coach to back him up there. But I think you got guys like him that basically just don't have enough reps, and it's kind of so they're behind the 8 ball in the sense of their development as a player. And so you're going to get guys that you can draft and think to yourself, okay, this is going to be one of our guys. And when I say one of our guys, meaning you're drafting him and you are going to nurture him, you're going to develop him into and basically inject the DNA of whatever team you are and whatever culture you have. You're going to inject, that into these guys and raise them as your own. Now I see a lot of those types of players in this draft, where it's going to take maybe a year or two.
Like moldable players.
Yeah, I don't see just like only person that I see just that can come in and be a day one. Like, hey, I'm here. Put me somewhere so I can play. only person I can really see that is Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, maybe Harrison.
Marvin Harrison, obviously, and then Caleb Williams.
Wow. Oh, so you think Caleb's ready? He's going to go day one.
I think he's definitely ready day one.
He's gonna be in Chicago. I told you, man. That's where quarterbacks their careers go to die. Like it's gonna be so hard.
They're the new Oakland Raiders.
Yeah. Well, the problem is Oakland's had quarterbacks. Like Chicago, like I said, Jim McMahon. He had like a little 3-year stretch, really, like 84 to 86, and then Sid Luckman is in the Hall of Fame, but other than that, like who are we talking about? Rex Grossman? Like, damn, like who they had at quarterback? Like they haven't really had anybody.
Yeah,
I think that's what Caleb didn't initially want to go there, but
they had Jimmy Clausen.
Clausen played for he did play for the Bears for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a situation, and then with the ninth pick, I'm curious to see what they do with that too, because they do have DJ Moore on one side, so he's not coming in, empty-handed or anything. So it'll be
going back to the Panther or the Bears quarterbacks here. They had Mitch Trubisky, Nick
God,
Foles,
you remember what they did to get Mitch? They
Andy
traded
Dalton.
up.
Yeah, they traded up to get
the
him.
Bears. I didn't know Andy Dalton played for the Bears. Well, he's played for like everybody.
He was a backup in 2021.
Oh, okay.
They had Jay Cutler, Brian Hoyer, Matt Barkley, Kyle Orton.
Kyle Orton wasn't that bad.
Brian Greasy.
Wow. Wow. We're going back.
Jonathan Quinn.
I don't even remember him.
Cordell Stewart. In 2003.
Damn. That must have been telling of his career.
Yeah,
but still, yeah, I do remember him in Chicago. Okay. Man, Chicago's out of one of the questions I wanted to ask Ross, the teams that can benefit the most night one. I would think it's Chicago. They got 2 of the top 10 picks in the draft. They can really separate themselves from the pack. Their division is going to be really hard. Like Detroit, we saw Green Bay, and Green Bay is going to be scary if they can keep up what they were doing at the end of the year. And they're like the youngest team in the league, like even younger than us. Right. And then whatever happens in Minnesota, with them trading away Cousins, and it feels like they're kind of sort of rebuilding. But Detroit and Green Bay are going to have a lot to say in the NFC, I think, the next couple of years. And Chicago, they're in a position where they could maybe move themselves up to that as well. I'm also at the point with us in the NFC South, as we're going to wrap it up right here, because I don't think Ross is coming. Is it wrong that I feel like we have a shot to actually be I'm not going to say, a great team. I don't want to go too far, like off the diving board, but have your expectations changed from when we were at the end of last season to now in terms of realistically what you think they might be able to do on the field compared to last year in our division?
Yeah, I think obviously we have nowhere but to go up from last year. And I think we have the players and the coaching staff this time to actually make that come to fruition. Now, the expectations as far as wins and losses, I think as a fan, you're excited just to see more competitive football. And I think that's the expectation. Being able to go in on Sunday or whatever game days and think to yourself, man, I'm about to go watch a product that I can be proud of. And something that resonates with what I'm used to as a football fan. And so I think we're going to get, on offense, something that we are proud to watch as far as, hey, our quarterback didn't get killed this game because, they've done a good job protecting him, and hopefully guys stay healthy. So that way we're not having a bunch of, different combinations of offensive linemen coming into play, being asked to protect with everybody being on the same alignment, because it's hard to do when you have injuries plugged every week here and there. And that's what we experienced last year, right? And so hopefully this year guys stay healthy and are able to build chemistry as a unit, and you can build on top of those types of things.
Man, I feel like it's almost like 2011 for me. Like everybody knows our panel. Schuyler's the reporter. He's in the locker room. He's talking to the players. He's talking to the coaches. He's the straight man. He's the one that's asking the questions at the press conferences. Stu's the former Panther player. He's been in the locker room. He's been in these situations. He's been in the big game, so he knows what it feels like from the player perspective. For me, I'm the host, but I'm also the super fan of the group. I'm the one that they allow to get emotional. I'm the one that, the sky's falling. Oh, we're going 16-0. That's me. I'm out of our dynamic. So for me, I look at it like it kind of reminds me of how I felt in 2011, because 2010 felt like such a helpless, like a lost season. Like that's the last time I remember feeling like this, where it was just like, we can't get out the wrong way. Like between injuries and everything else, it just snowballed into that season. And then 2011 happened where we didn't make the playoffs, but we had excitement again. Like there was a sense of identity in terms of we were rebuilding what we were. And I'm catching that sense here. And I think a lot of it has to do with Dan Morgan. Remember I was saying I was worried when we let Scott Fitterer go that whoever came in wasn't going to know the Panther culture and the fans and what we like. And, for 25 plus years, it's run the ball, stop the run. That's been our mentality in Carolina, and Dan Morgan, out of anybody, would understand that more than anybody. And he's brought that home, and the guys he's brought in. And I'm really curious to see what he does over this weekend in the draft, because that, to me, that's what kind of builds a GM's name, in the league. What do you do in the draft? Like, are you one of these guys going to move up and down, move all around? Because Belichick got a credit for doing that a lot, but in the end, it didn't really net him a lot of actual players that he really used. He was just really good at manipulating the board. Fit kind of was too, to a certain degree, but he also gave away picks. So I want to see what Dan can do, if he learned from sitting underneath Fitterer, if he would have done certain things differently than what Scott did. And I'm interested in the type of players he brings in. I'm actually halfway thinking about, depending on what my schedule looks like, trying to go down during rookie minicamp. I don't know if they didn't let the public in for that kind of stuff. They don't, did they? No? No. Oh, I think you went mute on me.
I went mute on you.
Okay.
Sorry. I don't know. It's crazy, bro.
Well, you're not public, so you can just walk in the building and be like, "Hey, I'm Jonathan Stewart," and they just let you in. But
my recollection sometimes of things that I've experienced, especially like football practice and like what things were like, I legit, if you ask me a question like, "Hey, man, what was training camp like your rookie year?" I would need you to give me at least 2 minutes to actually go back into my archives.
Oh, those questions are coming. Like after the draft, that'll probably be next show. We'll be like, so Stu,
please,
so you got a week.
Let me know in advance so that way I can actually go through my archives and pull those things out. There's a lot going on in my life right now. But there's just like, especially as you get older, you just realize, man, I don't remember nothing from 10 years ago.
It's so fast, right? Like, I mean,
especially when you have so much that happens and you experience. So definitely got to go in the archives.
All right, so we know what we're doing next. So next week, Ultimate 53, we'll review this draft. Schuyler will be with us. We'll review this draft because we're going to need some help, Schuyler, with especially the back end, because you're going to know these guys. We're not going to know who they are. So we'll get into that and see what the Panthers did. Again, don't forget Chris Lee from WRAL Raleigh and the Panthers Playbook co-host with Dennis Cox. He'll be on with me on a Bleav in Panthers Extra. I think it'll drop Thursday before the draft, so we'll still have a day before the Panthers actually make their pick. So keep on with this channel and on the Bleav Podcast Network channel for that. And then, like I said, next week we'll do Ultimate 53-man roster. We'll probably do 2 positions next week, so probably we'll get the D-line straight. So defensive line, defensive tackle. Go to Bleav in Panthers on Twitter/X to vote on those. Those polls will be up here shortly. It's all fan votes. We don't have anything to do with it. We just pull your results, and that's how we build the 53. And Stu will have a week to kind of ponder his thoughts on training camp from when he was a rookie and what the rookies are about to go through, because people don't really realize Bryce Young at this point last year did not belong to a team. Like, he was still making the rounds and trying to, play I'm the number 1 pick. He's been in the building now for this whole time. So I'm expecting some growth from Bryce. So we'll look at it from both ways. How about that? We'll look at it from your training camp rookie year as opposed to your training camp coming in for your second year. Because I imagine those are two huge different situations. Yeah. So we'll do that. I think that's it for now. Shout out to Luca Easterling that came in from Athlon Sports. Great information regarding the draft and everything else. Not sure what happened with Ross Tucker. We'll find out where he may be and try to.
Yeah, Ross, if you hear this, owe us.
Where you at, man? Just like he just disappeared. What? Like, come on, man. We're sitting waiting. What? But no, I'm sure it was probably some conflicts. So we'll figure out what's up with Ross. Maybe we'll get him on after the draft to talk about what happened with everything. So we're gonna get out of here. Schuyler will be back with us next week. For Jonathan Stewart, I'm Desmond Johnson. You've been listening to the Bleav in Panthers podcast here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Keep on it.